For what it's worth, I'm sorry about what happened to you. Derek seemed like a good kid, but apparently I was wrong about his character. Derek tried to salvage his career by starting a YouTube channel called Truth and Fitness. His first video, titled My Side of the Story, got 347 views and 23 comments, most of them from people who knew him personally, and weren't impressed with his explanation. Bro, you slept with your cousin's wife while she was married. One comment read, "There's no your side to that." His second video, a workout routine filmed in his cramped apartment, got 89 views. His third video, where he tried to explain the misunderstandings about his certification status, got 34 views and was eventually taken down. I didn't have to do anything to make Derek's YouTube career fail. He managed that all by himself. But I did send the link to a few fitness influencers I'd found online along with copies of the photos, showing Derek's various affairs. They shared it with their audiences as an example of what not to do in the fitness industry. Within a week, Derek's channel had been turned into a meme. Screenshots of his desperate explanations were shared across fitness forums with captions like, "When you're trying to explain why cheating with your cousin's wife was actually a good business decision." Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. I took a week off work to renovate my house, stripping away every trace of Nicole and Derek's presence. New paint in the bedroom, new sheets, new furniture in the living room. I even replaced the workbench in the garage, though I kept the old one in storage. Evidence for the divorce proceedings. The backyard required special attention. I tore out the flower beds Nicole had planted, the ones she'd tended while planning her affair. I built a new deck around the grill area, expanded the patio, and installed proper outdoor lighting. When I was finished, it looked like a completely different space. Clean, masculine mine. Gene stopped by on a Saturday afternoon while I was testing the new grill setup. He stood in the doorway. "Patterson, your client filed a false domestic violence report, obtained a restraining order under false pretenses, changed the locks on the marital home to exclude her husband, and has been cohabiting with another man while pregnant with his child. She has systematically attempted to defraud this court and her husband. I'm granting the petitioner's motion for immediate possession of the marital home and all assets therein." Nicole started crying. Derek reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Furthermore, the judge continued, "I'm ordering genetic testing once the child is born. If Mr. Galt is not the biological father, Mrs. G will be responsible for all legal fees and court costs." "Your Honor," Patterson tried again, "my client is pregnant and has nowhere to go. Your client should have considered that before committing adultery and perjury," Judge Williams said coldly. "This court is not in the business of enabling fraud. Mr. Galt, you have immediate possession of your home. Mrs. Galt, you have until Friday at 6 p.m. to collect your personal belongings." Outside the courthouse, Derek caught up with me in the parking lot. "This isn't over," he said, trying to look threatening in his borrowed suit. "Yeah, it is," I replied. "You just haven't figured it out yet. Nicole needs me. We're having a baby. Nicole needs someone who can pay for that baby. Last I checked, unemployed personal trainers with expired certifications don't make much money." His face went red. "I'll find something. Good luck with that. Your reputation in this town is pretty much shot." I started to walk away, but he grabbed my arm. "She loves me," he said desperately. "Not you, me." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. "Derek," I said quietly. "She's a liar and a cheat who destroyed a 20-year marriage for a few minutes of fun in my garage. What makes you think she won't do the same thing to you?" He let go of my arm like it had burned him. In the courthouse steps behind us, I could see Nicole crying into her phone, probably calling her mother. She looked small and lost. Nothing like the confident woman who'd humiliated me in front of my whole family. For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Derek's termination from Elite Fitness came 3 days after the courthouse hearing. The gym's owner, Marcus Webb, called me personally to let me know. "Travis, I wanted you to hear this from me." He said I had to let Derek go. "The whole situation has become too much of a distraction for our clients." "I appreciate the call, Marcus." He to the backyard surveying the changes. "Looks good, son," he said. "Real good." We hadn't spoken. Nicole came out 5 minutes later, walking like she was in a daze. Her carefully styled hair was disheveled, and she carried her presentation materials in a loose bundle against her chest. When she reached her car, she just stood there for a moment, staring at nothing. Then she threw her briefcase as hard as she could against the concrete wall. Papers scattered everywhere, catching the wind and blowing across the parking garage like oversized confetti. That evening, the story made the local news. A prominent Tulsa public relations Manager has been terminated after explicit audio recordings in private. Correspondence were made public during a client presentation. The anchor reported Nicole Galt, 36, was dismissed from Hartwell and Associates after what company officials called conduct incompatible with our professional standards. They didn't use Derek's name, but they didn't need to. The story had enough details that everyone who mattered would know exactly who the unnamed male personal trainer was. My phone rang at 11:30 p.m., Nicole's number. "You destroyed me," she said without preamble. Her voice was hollow, like all the fight had gone out of her. "You destroyed yourself," I replied. "I just made sure people could see it. That was my career, Travis. Everything I worked for. Yeah, well, this was my marriage. Everything I worked for." She was quiet for a long moment. In the background, I could hear Derek saying something, but I couldn't make out the words. "We're leaving town," she said finally. "Good. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. The baby isn't mine. We've established that." Another long pause. "I never meant for it to happen this way," she said. "Yes, you did. You just didn't think you'd get caught." I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside my window, the neon sign from the motel office flickered red and blue across the parking lot. It wasn't much of a view, but it was honest. More honest than anything I'd had in years. Attorney Sarah Sykes called me Tuesday, morning with news that made me smile for the first time in weeks. "The restraining order has been vacated," she said. "Turns out your wife's claims of domestic violence were somewhat undermined by her very public adultery scandal." "What does that mean?" "It means you can go home, Travis." The judge ruled that she filed a restraining order in bad faith to gain advantage in divorce proceedings. She has 48 hours to remove her belongings from the marital residence. I drove to my house, for the first time in 3 weeks. The key still didn't work. She'd never given me the new one. But a locksmith took care of that problem in 20 minutes. Inside, everything looked exactly the same but felt completely different. Our wedding pictures were still on the mantel, but someone had turned them face down. The kitchen table where we'd eaten breakfast together for 15 years looked like a prop from someone else's life. Derek's stuff was everywhere. His protein powder on the kitchen counter, his, "Travis, you're not supposed to be here. The restraining order doesn't apply to your house." "Rebecca, can I come in?" "Absolutely not. Nicole doesn't want to see you. I think she'll want to see what I have to show her." Nicole appeared behind her mother wearing a pale, yellow maternity dress that made her look younger and more innocent than she had any right to look. "What do you want, Travis?" she asked, her voice steady, but her eyes frightened. I held up the envelope. "Just wanted to drop off a baby gift." "I'm calling the police," Rebecca said, reaching for her phone. "Go ahead," I said, pushing past her into the living room. 23 women stared at me like I was a wild animal that had wandered into their tea party. Derek stood up from his spot on the couch, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "You need to leave," he said. "Now I'll leave," I said, unzipping my jacket. "Just as soon as I deliver this." I pulled out the envelope and held it up so everyone could see it. The return address clearly showed the name of the genetic testing lab. "According to these DNA results," I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the room, "the baby Nicole's carrying isn't mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Nicole's face went white, and she gripped the arms of her chair like she might fall over. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" I opened the envelope and pulled out the lab report. Probability of paternity 0%. "Would you like me to read the details?" Rebecca stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "How dare you!" Her hand connected with my cheek in a slap that echoed through the room. My head snapped to the side, but I didn't move otherwise. "Feel better?" I asked. Derek started toward me, but I was ready for him this time. I grabbed the nearest table, a decorative piece covered with gift bags, and shoved it in his direction. He stumbled backward, gifts scattering across the floor. "Stay back," I warned him. "You've caused enough trouble." I turned to Nicole, who was now crying silently, mascara running down her cheeks. 20 years, I said quietly. 20 years I loved you. I would have died for you, Travis. Please. I would have raised that baby. I would have convinced myself it was mine because I loved you that much. I dropped the DNA results on the floor at her feet. But you couldn't even give me that choice, could you? You had to rub my face in it. You had to make me the villain. Sirens were getting closer. Someone had called the police after all. "You want to know the really funny part?" I said, looking around the room at all the shocked faces. "This isn't even his first time. Derek's been cheating on you with at least 4 other women since this started. Did you think you were special?" Nicole made a sound like a wounded animal. Derek's face went from red to pale. "That's a lie," he said. I pulled out my phone and showed them one of the photos. I'd taken at the Fairfield Inn. Derek and the blonde kissing in the parking lot. Tuesday night, I said.